Behind the majestic walls of the Vatican lies a secret rarely mentioned in history textbooks. A secret shrouded in the scents of frankincense, myrrh, and a multitude of exotic essences. For centuries, the Catholic Church preserved the secrets of creating unique perfumes and incenses used in Christianity's most sacred rituals. Scents did not merely fill the air in cathedrals. They became an invisible bridge between the earthly and the divine, the material and the spiritual. Ancient texts mention that a correctly composed aroma can open the soul to receive grace. But did the secret formulas of Vatican perfumers truly exist? And if so, what influence did they have on believers and the Church itself? The answers to these questions are lost among the yellowed pages of manuscripts stored in the Holy See's closed archives. Some historians claim that the Vatican's perfumery art was no less significant than its architectural heritage, but far more secret. After all, an aroma, unlike stone, cannot be preserved for centuries. Or can it? The origins of sacred aromas date back to deep antiquity, long before the emergence of the Vatican as the center of the Christian world. Biblical texts abound with mentions of incense and aromatic substances that played a key role in religious ceremonies. The Book of Exodus meticulously describes the recipe for the holy anointing oil, which God commanded Moses to prepare for anointing priests and the articles of the tabernacle. Olive oil mixed with myrrh, cinnamon, fragrant cane, and cassia. This composition was considered so sacred that it was forbidden for everyday use or reproduction for personal use. In Solomon's temple, according to ancient texts, a special blend of incenses was burned daily, including stacked, onycha, galbanum, and pure frankincense. Each of these components had its symbolic meaning, and together they created an aroma considered pleasing to God. The proportions of these substances were strictly regulated and passed down through generations of priestly families. Early Christianity, having grown out of Jewish traditions, inherited many ritual practices, including the use of aromatic substances. However, the first Christians, facing persecution, were forced to conduct their rites secretly and modestly. Only after the Edict of Milan in 313 AD, when Christianity gained official status in the Roman Empire, was the Church able to openly use incense in its rituals. It was during this period that the specifically Christian tradition of using aromas began to form. Knowledge of sacred compositions was passed down orally, from teacher to student, from bishop to priest. As Rome gradually became the center of Western Christianity, not only religious texts and relics flowed there, but also practical knowledge about creating sacred aromas. Eastern Christian communities played a special role in preserving and developing this knowledge. The Byzantine Empire, situated at the crossroads of trade routes between Europe, Asia, and Africa, had access to the rarest aromatic substances. Constantinopolitan masters created exquisite compositions for the imperial court and patriarchs. Some of this knowledge penetrated Rome through diplomatic contacts, trade, and pilgrimages. In the 6th and 7th centuries, as ties between East and West weakened, Roman pontiffs realized the need to preserve and systematize knowledge about sacred aromas. The first written instructions for creating chrism for baptism and oil for anointing the sick appeared. These texts were guarded with the same care as theological treatises and liturgical books. Medieval monasteries were not only centers of spiritual life, but also true laboratories where monks carefully preserved and developed ancient knowledge about medicinal and aromatic plants. Dozens of types of herbs, flowers, and shrubs, whose properties were known since antiquity, were cultivated in quiet monastic gardens. Benedictines, Cistercians, and Carthusians particularly excelled in creating ordered gardens, where each plant had its strictly defined place. In the 9th century, the famous plan of the Abbey of St. Gall appeared, which provided for separate plots for medicinal, aromatic, and culinary plants. This document testifies to the high level of organization of monastic gardens and the understanding of the properties of various plants. Roses, lavender, sage, thyme, rosemary, mint. These and many other plants not only adorned monastic gardens, but served as a source of raw materials for creating medicines and aromatic compositions. Ancient texts on the properties of plants and methods of their processing were preserved in monastic scriptoria. Monks copied the works of Dioscorides, Galen, Avicenna, supplementing them with their own observations. Gradually, a body of knowledge was formed that laid the foundation for medieval pharmacopoeia and perfumery. The first documented formulas for perfumes created in monasteries date back to the 11th and 12th centuries. A manuscript from the Abbey of Monte Cassino contains a recipe for angel water, an aromatic composition based on rose water with the addition of nutmeg, cloves, and cinnamon. This fragrance was used during particularly solemn divine services and for sprinkling high-ranking guests. Nuns of women's monasteries also made a significant contribution to the development of aromatic art. Hildegard of Bingen, abbess of a Benedictine monastery in the 12th century, left detailed descriptions of the properties of plants and their application for creating medicinal and aromatic compounds. In her works, she linked certain aromas with spiritual states, asserting, for example, that the scent of a rose helps the soul find joy and peace. Monastic laboratories were often located next to pharmacies, which reflected the close connection between aromatherapy and medicine. Monk healers used aromatic essences not only to create pleasant smells, but also as medicinal remedies. Lavender water was used for headaches, rosemary tincture for memory problems, and peppermint oil for digestive disorders. Dominicans, whose order was closely associated with the Inquisition, played a special role in the development of monastic perfumery. It was believed that certain aromas could help recognize the presence of evil forces or cleanse a space of evil spirits. Dominicans developed special aromatic mixtures for fumigating premises before important church processes. In the 14th century, within the walls of the Vatican, a legendary formula was born that would define the development of European perfumery for centuries. Aqua Mirabilis, the miraculous water. The first documented mention of this composition dates back to 1347, when the apothecary of Pope Clement VI recorded the recipe in a special manuscript kept in the pontiffs' private chambers. It was not merely a fragrance. Aqua Mirabilis was considered simultaneously a medicine, a protection against evil spirits, and a symbol of divine grace. At the heart of the formula was highly purified grape spirit, which monk distillers obtained through multiple distillations. To it were added essences of rosemary, lavender, sage, thyme, and mint, plants that grew in abundance in monastic gardens. Exotic components lent special value to the composition. Citrus oils from Sicily, ambergris brought from the Indian Ocean coast, and musk delivered through Venetian merchants from the distant Himalayan foothills. The technique of making aqua mirabilis was as important as the ingredients. The process began on the new moon and took a full lunar cycle. Herbs were gathered only at dawn, when the dew had not yet dried on the leaves. Maceration took place in silver vessels, and distillation in special alembics of Venetian glass. Each stage was accompanied by prayers and blessings. During the Great Plague of the mid-14th century, aqua mirabilis gained particular popularity. Pope Clement VI, while in Avignon, constantly kept a handkerchief soaked in this composition near his face and ordered his chambers to be fumigated. Historians note that the pontiff indeed avoided infection, although the plague claimed the lives of many of his close associates. Cardinals and high-ranking church hierarchs quickly adopted this practice. Records of regular supplies of ingredients for making the miraculous water have been preserved in the Vatican archives. By the 15th century, Aqua Mirabilis became an integral part of papal ceremonial. For important audiences, the pontiffs' chambers were sprinkled with this composition, and during processions, a server walked ahead of the Pope, scattering the fragrant water. Pope Leo X of the Medici family was particularly fond of Aqua Mirabilis. As a refined connoisseur of the arts, he commissioned improvements to the formula, adding bergamot and neroli. This version was named Aqua Mirabilis Pontificalis and was used exclusively for the Pope's personal needs. Contemporaries noted that the fragrance accompanied the pontiff like an invisible cloud, creating an atmosphere of mystery and sanctity around him. In the 16th century, the fame of the Vatican fragrance spread beyond ecclesiastical circles. European monarchs and aristocrats sought to acquire at least a bottle of the miraculous water. It is known that Catherine de' Medici, upon going to France for her marriage to the future King Henry II, carried with her a recipe obtained from her relative, a cardinal. This recipe formed the basis of the first French colognes, which later conquered the world. In the very heart of the Vatican, there existed a unique system for storing and transmitting perfumery secrets, no less meticulously developed than the protocols for electing a new pontiff. The monk apothecaries, responsible for creating and preserving sacred aromatic formulas, belonged to a special group, chosen from among the most devoted and proven servants of the Church. These individuals took a special vow of silence concerning the secrets of Vatican perfumery. Its violation was equated with breaking the seal of confession and was punishable by excommunication. Archival documents, recently opened to researchers, confirm the existence of a special repository known as the Aromatic Library, or Bibliotheca Aromatica. This room was located in the basement of the Apostolic Palace, near the Vatican Pharmacy. Only a few people had access there, including the chief Vatican apothecary and his assistants, who had received a special blessing. Recipes were kept in special lead capsules or sealed in wax tablets, protecting the formulas from moisture and insects. The most valuable compositions were recorded using special ciphers and codes, understandable only to the initiated. The practice of intentionally distorting proportions or replacing key components in recorded recipes was often employed. The true formulas were transmitted exclusively orally from teacher to student. According to 17th century testimonies, each monk perfumer underwent 10 years of training, starting with the simplest tasks of growing and collecting aromatic plants in the Vatican gardens. Gradually, the apprentice was admitted to more complex operations: distillation, maceration, extraction. Only in the 7th year of training was he granted access to some basic recipes, and full initiation into all secrets occurred only after the monk had proven absolute devotion and exceptional abilities. Formulas for compositions intended for the personal use of popes were especially strictly guarded. A unique aromatic composition was created for each pontiff, reflecting his spiritual aspirations and theological views. These recipes were kept separate from the others and destroyed after the Pope's death, unless he left a special instruction to preserve the formula for posterity. Mentions of special ceremonies for the transmission of secrets, held during the change of the chief apothecary, are preserved in the archives. The ritual took place at night, in the presence of the Cardinal Camerlengo, and included not only the transmission of physical recipes, but also oral formulas, as well as the demonstration of techniques that were dangerous to record due to their potential hazard if used incorrectly. The system of recipe storage survived several crises, especially during the Avignon papacy and the Reformation period. There is evidence that in 1527, during the sack of Rome by the troops of Emperor Charles V, the monk apothecaries managed to wall up the most valuable manuscripts in a secret hiding place, located in the walls of St. Peter's Basilica. These documents were discovered only a century later, during the reconstruction of the temple. Frankincense and myrrh, two of the most ancient incenses whose names are inextricably linked with Christian tradition. These aromatic resins, brought by the Magi to the infant Jesus, became fundamental elements of Catholic worship. Yet few know that the Vatican for centuries kept special recipes for their use, distinct from the commonly known ones. Frankincense, obtained from trees of the Boswellia genus, and myrrh, extracted from plants of the Commiphora genus, in the hands of Vatican masters, were transformed into tools for influencing the consciousness of believers, becoming an integral part of the sacred chemistry of incenses. Standard frankincense, used in most Catholic churches, contains about 70% resin. However, Vatican recipes prescribe the use of resin of a special quality, collected during specific moon phases from trees growing on the southern slopes of mountains in Oman and Yemen. To this base were added microdoses of other components: ambergris, musk, rosewater, and, according to some sources, amber crumbs ground into dust. Chemical analysis of Vatican frankincense samples conducted in the early 21st century revealed the presence of an unusually high concentration of terpenes and boswellic acids, which have a pronounced psychoactive effect. When burned, these compounds form complex aldehydes and esters, which, upon entering the respiratory tract, can cause a slight alteration of perception, an increase in emotional susceptibility, and heightened suggestibility. Scientists confirmed that regular inhalation of such smoke in the enclosed space of a cathedral can indeed induce a state close to a mild trance. Myrrh in Vatican formulas also differed from common usage. Secret recipes mention a process of repeated purification and aging of the resin in special clay vessels, buried in the ground to a depth of human height. After 40 days, the myrrh was extracted and mixed with an essence of white rose petals, grown in the gardens of Castel Gandolfo. The resulting composition possessed not only a deep, penetrating aroma, but also a powerful antiseptic action, which was especially important during epidemics. Interestingly, some 16th century manuscripts contain instructions for adding ground particles of relics to Vatican incense, presumably microscopic fragments of saints' bones. This practice, if it indeed existed, lent the incense an additional sacred dimension, physically connecting worshippers with the saints through the inhaled smoke. Special attention in Vatican recipes was paid to the process of burning incense. The temperature regime, the rate of smoldering, even the material of the censer, all this affected the chemical composition of the smoke and its impact on those present. Documents testify to the existence of special instructions for masters of ceremonies, regulating the frequency and amplitude of censer movements, depending on the type of service and the desired effect. Behind the closed doors of the Vatican, there exists a unique tradition about which few outside the Holy See are aware: the creation of personal perfumes for pontiffs. Each Roman pontiff, upon ascending the throne of St. Peter, received not only the keys to the kingdom of heaven, but also a unique fragrance, crafted specifically for him and symbolizing his spiritual mission and personal qualities. This tradition, which originated in the 15th century under Pope Nicholas V, was preserved in the strictest secrecy and passed down from one Vatican perfumer to another as sacred knowledge. Papal perfumes were never intended for widespread use. Their scent was meant to be associated exclusively with the figure of the pontiff, becoming an invisible yet recognizable symbol of his authority and sanctity. For Pope Leo X, a renowned patron of the arts from the Medici family, a luxurious fragrance was created based on Florentine iris, complemented by notes of frankincense, ambergris, and exotic spices. This complex, multifaceted perfume reflected the pontiff's refined taste and his desire to surround himself with beauty. Entirely different was the fragrance created for the ascetic Pope Pius V, a simple yet profound composition of bitter almond, cypress, and myrrh symbolized his strictness and unwavering resolve in matters of faith. Particularly interesting is the history of the perfumes created for Pope Urban VIII of the Barberini family. Their composition included the rarest components: musk from Tibet, ambergris from the shores of the Arabian Sea, jasmine essence from the gardens of Granada, and, most notably, pollen from beehives installed in the Vatican gardens. Bees were the heraldic symbol of the Barberini family, and the inclusion of this component lent the perfumes not only a unique aroma, but also deep symbolic meaning. Archival documents indicate that the perfume formulas often reflected the political ambitions and international connections of the Vatican. Thus, during the period of active missionary work in the New World, vanilla extracts from Mexico and balms from Peru began to be added to papal fragrances. In the era of rapprochement with France in the 18th century, Vatican perfumers enriched their compositions with lavender from Provence and bergamot. For Pope Pius VII, who had a complex relationship with Napoleon, an especially intricate fragrance was created, including components symbolizing resilience and steadfastness: oak moss, vetiver, and cedar. This perfume was intended to strengthen the pontiff's spirit during difficult times, and to remind him of eternal values that transcend fleeting worldly power. The study of the components of papal perfumes allows one to trace not only the evolution of perfumery, but also changes in the Catholic Church's self-perception. During periods of power and self-assurance, the fragrances became brighter and more intense. In times of crisis and confrontation, they became more austere and conservative. Today, the tradition of creating personal papal fragrances continues, albeit in a modified form. Modern pontiffs use more restrained compositions, reflecting the simplicity and humility that have become hallmarks of contemporary papacy. However, knowledge of the creation of traditional papal perfumes is carefully preserved in the Vatican archives, as a reminder of times when fragrance was not merely a pleasant accessory, but a powerful instrument of power and mysticism. Deep beneath the vaults of the Sistine Chapel, far from tourist routes and prying eyes, lies a room whose existence long remained a subject of rumors and conjectures: the Sistine Perfume Laboratory. This is what historians studying the secret sides of Vatican life call this mysterious place. The first mention of it appears in documents from the mid-16th century, when by order of Pope Julius III, a special room for creating fragrances intended exclusively for ecclesiastical needs was set up next to the pontiff's private apartments. According to archival blueprints discovered by the Italian researcher Marco Bianchi in 2000, the laboratory was a spacious hall with high ceilings and several windows overlooking an inner courtyard. A distinctive feature of the room was a well-designed ventilation system, a complex network of air ducts that allowed both the removal of aromatic vapors and the prevention of odors from penetrating into adjacent halls. This technical solution was centuries ahead of its time and testifies to the high level of engineering thought of Vatican masters. The laboratory equipment impressed with its variety and sophistication. Copper stills of various sizes, crafted by the best Florentine masters, occupied a central place. Nearby were presses for extracting essential oils from plant raw materials, marble mortars for grinding solid components, scales of astonishing precision, and numerous glass vessels of whimsical shapes. Of particular value were alembics, special distillation apparatuses made of Venetian glass, created by masters from the island of Murano. In the shadowy pages of Vatican history, a special place is held by mysterious aromatic compounds, specially crafted to combat demonic forces. These exorcism elixirs were not merely incense, but powerful weapons in the hands of ecclesiastical exorcists, battling for human souls. The formulas for these compounds were kept in the strictest secrecy and passed down only to selected priests who had undergone special training. Vatican archives contain manuscripts dating back to the 13th century, where special aromatic mixtures, intended exclusively for rites of expelling evil spirits, are first mentioned. One such document, Compendium Exorcismorum, contains a description of a compound known as fumigation of Saint Cyprian, a complex mixture of 7 main components, each with deep symbolic meaning. The base was myrrh, a symbol of Christ's suffering, believed at the time to inflict physical pain upon demonic entities. To this was added asafoetida, a resin with a sharp, unpleasant odor, which was thought to be unbearable for unclean spirits. The third component was rue, a plant traditionally associated with protection against witchcraft. The composition was supplemented by valerian root, thistle flowers, datura seeds, and, most interestingly, powdered black goat horns. Modern research confirms that such a combination, when burned, indeed released substances with pronounced psychoactive effects. The smoke, saturated with tropane alkaloids from datura, terpenoids from valerian, and volatile sulfur-containing compounds from asafoetida, created a potent cocktail capable of inducing altered states of consciousness. A person inhaling this smoke in an enclosed space could experience hallucinations, spasms, temporary mental confusion. All these symptoms in the Middle Ages were interpreted as signs of a demon's struggle against the power of exorcism. It is noteworthy that Vatican exorcists used different aromatic compounds depending on the supposed type of possession. For cases where the presence of demons of lust was suspected, mixtures with a predominance of camphor and mint, possessing a cooling effect, were used. When demons of wrath were suspected, calming compounds based on lavender and melissa were applied. 18th-century documents testify to the existence of a special, graduated approach to exorcism. The procedure began with the burning of mild, soothing incenses, creating an atmosphere of tranquility and trust. If this did not yield results, increasingly intense compounds were gradually introduced, up to the most potent mixtures used in critical cases. The effectiveness of these aromatic compounds can be explained not only by their psychoactive effects, but also by the powerful psychological impact of the ritual itself. Many cases of possession, in historical perspective, turned out to be manifestations of mental disorders, epilepsy, or hysteria. In such situations, the combination of suggestion, the authority of the Church, and the physiological effects of aromatic substances could indeed lead to temporary relief of symptoms. Over the 1,000-year history of the Catholic Church, dozens of unique compositions were created, intended for the preservation of sacred relics. These formulas, developed by monk alchemists, allowed not only to slow down the natural process of decomposition of organic materials, but also to impart a special aroma to them, which believers called the smell of holiness. In the closed Vatican archives, manuscripts are stored that meticulously describe these compositions and methods of their application. One of the most ancient documents, Tractatus de Conservatione Reliquiarum, dating back to the 11th century, contains a recipe for an embalming compound used for the treatment of saints' relics. The base was oil infused with myrrh, aloe, and cedarwood, with the addition of beeswax, frankincense, and ground amber. This compound was applied to organic tissues in thin layers, creating a protective film that prevented exposure to moisture and microorganisms. A distinctive feature of Vatican-preserving compounds was the use of special aromatic additives that created a unique olfactory profile for each relic. It was believed that true relics of saints should exude a pleasant, sweetish aroma, a testament to the grace residing within them. To achieve this effect, essences of rose, violet, nutmeg, and ambergris were used. Each component had not only practical, but also symbolic significance. Rose symbolized martyrdom, violet, humility, nutmeg, spiritual strength, ambergris, divine presence. The process of relic authentication also included olfactory analysis. Specially trained monk authenticator could determine the authenticity of relics, and even their approximate age by their characteristic aroma. In the 16th century, during the active fight against the spread of fake relics, the Vatican developed a system for marking authentic relics using secret aromatic signatures. Microdoses of rare components in unique combinations were added to the composition, creating an inimitable aroma that could not be faked without knowledge of the exact formula. Modern scientific studies confirm the effectiveness of Vatican-preserving compounds. Analysis of well-preserved relics revealed the presence of powerful natural antiseptics: thymol from thyme, eugenol from cloves, camphor, and borneol from rosemary. These compounds are indeed capable of inhibiting the growth of bacteria and fungi, slowing down decomposition processes. Of particular interest is the presence of miraculous, a flavonoid with powerful antioxidant properties, capable of preventing tissue oxidation, found in some compositions. In the 21st century, Vatican experts are collaborating with leading laboratories worldwide, applying modern analytical methods to study ancient preserving compounds. Gas chromatography and mass spectrometry have allowed the identification of over 200 compounds in samples taken from relics of different eras. Some of the discovered components proved to be such effective preservatives that they attracted the interest of pharmaceutical companies engaged in the development of new antimicrobial drugs. The missionary activity of the Catholic Church became not only a way of spreading faith, but also a unique channel for enriching Vatican perfumery with exotic ingredients. For centuries, monks and priests, venturing into the most remote corners of the world, returned not only with newly converted souls, but also with invaluable aromatic treasures, inaccessible to ordinary merchants. The Vatican archives meticulously record these expeditions and the rarities they brought back, which subsequently became key components of sacred fragrances. Jesuit missionaries, who penetrated China in the 16th century, were the first to deliver genuine samples of Chinese musk to Rome, obtained from the musk deer, a small deer inhabiting mountainous regions. This ingredient, possessing a deep, earthy aroma with woody notes, became an important component of special incenses used during the coronation of new pontiffs. Franciscans, established in New Spain, discovered vanilla, an exotic orchid whose fermented pods possessed a unique sweet aroma. For a long time, the Vatican was the only place in Europe that knew the secret of properly processing vanilla pods, making this ingredient a true monopoly of the Church. Dominican missionaries working in Africa brought back the rarest varieties of myrrh and frankincense, collected in regions inaccessible to ordinary traders due to tribal wars and dangerous conditions. These resins were distinguished by their exceptional purity and strength of aroma, making them indispensable for creating the most sacred incenses. A special role in expanding the Vatican's collection of aromatic substances was played by the Carmelites, whose missions in Persia and India provided access to such rarities as true sandalwood, attar of rose and jasmine, as well as a mysterious component mentioned in documents as phoenix tears, presumably a special kind of resin extracted from trees growing on the slopes of the Himalayas. Unlike ordinary trade routes, often interrupted by wars, epidemics, and political conflicts, the Church's supply channels for exotic ingredients were remarkably stable. This was ensured by an extensive network of monasteries, serving as transit points where valuable cargo could be stored for months, awaiting a safe moment for further transportation. To protect against pirates and robbers, special containers disguised as religious artifacts were used. No one would have thought that a cache of precious aromatic substances was hidden inside a wooden statue of a saint. Documents testify to the existence of a special encrypted system for designating ingredients in correspondence between missionaries and the Vatican. This was necessary not only to protect information from interception by competitors, but also to keep secret the true purpose of certain substances, which in some cultures were considered sacred, or conversely, forbidden. The Vatican archives hold a legend of a mysterious book containing a complete collection of perfumery formulas created over many centuries of the Holy See's existence. This manuscript, known as Codex Aromaticus, is not merely a collection of recipes. It is a true encyclopedia of sacred perfumery, embodying the wisdom of dozens of generations of ecclesiastical fragrance masters. According to historical accounts, the Codex was compiled at the end of the 18th century by order of Pope Pius VI, who was concerned about the growing instability in Europe and the potential loss of valuable knowledge in the event of war or revolution. To create this unique document, a special commission was assembled, consisting of 3 monastic apothecaries, 2 librarians, and 1 miniature artist, who worked in strict secrecy for 7 years. The result of their labor was a luxurious leather-bound folio with silver clasps, containing over 200 formulas with detailed illustrations of plants, minerals, and manufacturing processes. The fate of Codex Aromaticus proved to be dramatic and enigmatic. In 1798, when Napoleon's troops invaded the Papal States, the Codex, along with other valuables, was hastily evacuated from the Vatican. According to the official version, the book was transported to the Benedictine Abbey of Monte Cassino for safekeeping. However, French troops soon captured this monastery as well, and the trail of the Codex was lost in the chaos of the Napoleonic Wars. Some historians believe that the manuscript was seized by the French and taken to Paris, where its formulas might have been used to create perfumery compositions for the imperial court. Others believe that the Provident monks managed to hide the Codex in one of the monastery's secret caches, and it is still awaiting its moment in an unknown sanctuary. A third version suggests that the book was secretly taken to Russia, along with other treasures that Napoleon plundered from European treasuries. The search for Codex Aromaticus continues to this day. Perfumery historians, reconstructors of ancient aromas, and even specialists from leading European perfumery houses are engaged in painstaking work, trying to find at least fragments of this priceless manuscript. In 2000, an international research group discovered several pages in the archives of the National Library of France, which, according to experts, could belong to the lost Codex. These yellowed pages contained fragments of formulas and elegant botanical illustrations, executed in a style characteristic of Vatican masters. Of particular interest was an encrypted entry found in the margin of one of the pages, which, after deciphering, turned out to be an indication of the existence of a second, even more secret copy of the Codex, hidden in a place where 3 waters meet, under the patronage of the holy fisherman. This mysterious phrase gave rise to many hypotheses and became an impetus for new searches. Within the quiet walls of European monasteries, a true renaissance of the ancient art of perfumery is taking place. Traditions that seemed irrevocably lost in the abyss of time are finding new life, thanks to the perseverance and dedication of modern monks. At the Abbey of St. Benedict in northern Italy, Brother Tommaso, a white-haired monk with surprisingly lively eyes, carefully turns the yellowed pages of an ancient manuscript. "We painstakingly restored these formulas," he says, gently closing the ancient manuscript. Some recipes had to be pieced together from fragments scattered across various archives and libraries in Europe. Modern science is opening new horizons in understanding ancient church fragrances. Thanks to advanced chemical analysis technologies, researchers have finally gained the opportunity to peer into the very heart of Vatican perfumery formulas, which have been shrouded in mystery and mysticism for centuries. Gas chromatography and mass spectrometry have become the keys to unraveling these ancient secrets, allowing for the molecular-level determination of the composition of preserved samples. At the University of Turin Laboratory, a group of scientists led by Professor Alessandro Guidi conducted a comprehensive study of fabric fragments impregnated with 16th-century church fragrances. The results proved truly revolutionary. In one of the oldest samples, over 120 different compounds were identified, many of which possess significant biological activity. Of particular interest was the discovery of a high concentration of linalool and linaloyl acetate, terpene alcohols with proven calming and antidepressant effects. These substances, found in lavender and bergamot, could have induced a state of tranquility and heightened suggestibility in believers during long ceremonies. Another surprising discovery was the presence of alpha-pinene and camphene, compounds capable of improving cognitive functions and enhancing concentration. Their source was likely frankincense and rosemary, traditionally used in church incense. A study of a chrism sample, dated to the 17th century, revealed the presence of esters and phenolic compounds with powerful antiseptic properties. Modern pharmacological tests confirmed that such a composition could indeed have provided protection against infections, a property particularly valuable in eras preceding the discovery of antibiotics. Swiss scientists from the University of Geneva applied three-dimensional gas chromatography technology to analyze aromatic substances preserved in the pores of ancient censers. This method allowed for the separation and identification of compounds present in trace concentrations. Among the discovered substances were trace amounts of benzyl benzoate and coumarin, natural fragrance fixatives that extend the longevity of the composition. This indicates a deep understanding by Vatican perfumers of the chemical processes occurring during the evaporation and oxidation of aromatic substances. Particularly intriguing was the discovery in some samples of compounds traditionally associated with the Far East: camphor and borneol from Asian laurel trees, eugenol from Indonesian cloves. Their presence confirms the existence of secret trade routes connecting the Vatican with distant regions of Asia, long before the establishment of official diplomatic relations. Modern research in the field of aromatherapy confirms the effectiveness of many components of ancient church formulas. Clinical trials of frankincense essential oil, conducted at Heidelberg University, demonstrated its ability to reduce anxiety levels and improve mood through its effect on the brain's limbic system. Myrrh oil, another traditional component of church fragrances, showed high efficacy as an anti-inflammatory and immunomodulatory agent in studies conducted at Cairo Medical University. Our journey through the mysterious world of Vatican perfumery is drawing to a close. But the aroma of this story continues to linger in the air, reminiscent of the invisible heritage that has shaped the spiritual atmosphere of the Holy See for centuries. Secret formulas, hidden in dusty archives and passed down by word of mouth by select custodians, represent a unique layer of cultural heritage whose significance extends far beyond mere perfumery. The study of ancient Vatican perfume recipes opens up a new dimension in our understanding of the history of the Catholic Church. Behind every drop of essence, behind every gram of aromatic resin, there is not just a desire to create a pleasant scent, but a deep philosophical and theological concept. Fragrances served as invisible conduits between the earthly and the heavenly, the material and the spiritual, creating a special atmosphere in which believers could feel the presence of the divine. By examining the evolution of Vatican perfume formulas over the centuries, we can trace changes within the Church itself, from the mysticism of the Middle Ages to the rationalism of the Enlightenment, from imperial grandeur to modern modesty. Each era left its olfactory imprint, which today serves as a unique historical testimony, as valuable as written documents or works of art. The ethical aspect of using ancient ecclesiastical recipes in modern commercial perfumery deserves special attention. In recent decades, we have observed a growing interest of perfume houses in historical formulas, from the reconstruction of medieval fragrances to the creation of modern interpretations of papal perfumes. This trend raises important questions about the boundaries between the sacred and the profane, between cultural heritage and commercial exploitation. On the one hand, the revival of ancient recipes contributes to the preservation of unique knowledge and traditions that might otherwise have been irretrievably lost. Modern perfumers, by turning to Vatican formulas, pay tribute to the masters of the past and help the general public connect with this aspect of cultural heritage. On the other hand, the question arises about the permissibility of commercializing fragrances originally created for sacred purposes. Is it ethical to use a formula developed for anointing at a papal coronation in perfumes sold in trendy boutiques? Does such an approach not devalue the sacred meaning of these fragrances? The Vatican takes a cautious stance on this issue. Officially, the Holy See does not license the reproduction of historical formulas, but it does not hinder research in this area if it is conducted with due respect for tradition. Some monastic orders, possessing knowledge of ancient recipes, cooperate with perfume companies, but on the condition that part of the proceeds will be directed to charitable purposes. The experience of the Italian perfume house Lorenzo Villaresi is interesting. It works with Benedictine monks to recreate medieval formulas. Each fragrance is accompanied by a detailed historical reference, recounting its origin and significance, which helps to preserve the cultural context and educational value. One of the most controversial points remains the issue of formulas associated with exorcism rituals and other sacraments. Most researchers and perfumers agree that such compositions should not be commercialized out of respect for their special status and potential psychological impact. The invisible heritage of Vatican perfumes continues to influence modern culture beyond perfumery. Research in the field of neurobiology of fragrances confirms the intuitive knowledge of ancient masters about the effect of certain scents on the human psyche. Components traditionally used in church incense are now finding application in aromatherapy, psychological practice, and even in the design of public spaces. Concluding our study of the secret formulas of Vatican perfumes, we can confidently say, this heritage has not merely survived, it continues to develop and enrich itself in monastic laboratories, university research centers, and the ateliers of independent perfumers. Ancient knowledge finds new life, adapting to modern realities while retaining its essence and depth. The fragrances of the Vatican are not just a history of perfumery. They are a history of human striving to build a bridge between the material and the spiritual, to embody the invisible in a tangible form. And as long as this striving exists, the invisible heritage of the Holy See will continue its journey through the centuries, filling the world with subtle, barely perceptible, but indelible notes of eternity.